All right, 9 o'clock, we'll call this meeting to the Dunn County Traffic Safety and Emergency Medical Services Committee to order. Just want to introduce myself. My name is Luke Wilsey. I'll be taking over as chair of the committee. John moved out of the district and had stepped down from the board, and we appreciate his services and miss him. But I just want to introduce myself, and we'll go on to the approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion and a second?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we'll move on. Traffic Safety Committee reports and request by the Highway Department to move it first, so I'm gonna let Dustin go first.
Yeah, so I'd like to have Nicole from SRF Consultants to just give you an update with our traffic safety, our Dunn County safety analysis plan that we're putting together for that Safe Streets for All grant that we were awarded with Eau Claire and St. Croix County. So she'll give you a status update of what's going on.
Perfect. Thank you, Justin. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Are you all able to see the presentation slides? So, okay, I'm seeing some nods. So perfect. Just like Dustin mentioned, we have the draft safety action plan completed. So I'm going to show you components of the safety plan. Let's see here. Okay, so as you see next, the slide shows all of the different chapters that are included as a part of your safety action plan. There's 7 specific chapters that have all of the 8 required components for the SS4A grant. The first chapter includes just a general why a safety action plan is important. It goes through USDOT's the Safe Systems approach, also just some national crash data information, and again, just stating how fatal and serious injuries and addressing those are very crucial. And then it goes into chapter 2, which talks through your roadway safety within the county. It talks about population demographics information at a high level. Again, why it's important for the county. There's specific contributing factors that are mentioned in that chapter as well as your vision and goal, which we'll go over in the next slide. And then current state of practice includes some policy review, and each of these components, I have a slide for those as well. So we'll get into deeper. Community and stakeholder engagement has high level what engagement activities were completed and how they're going to be incorporated into the plan. Chapter 5 is your meat of your plan, which includes all of your data analysis, all of the safety results. And then chapter 6 and 7 go through the different safety engineering countermeasures as well as non-engineering countermeasures to review and recommendations, as well as chapter 7 is just how you're going to implement all of those. Appendix A through F are all of the different memos and methodologies. So that's if you want to get into the deep dive and all of the data and information, you're able to review those in more detail. So starting off, the Dunn County specific vision and goal that was identified. So again, first vision is all zero traffic deaths and severe injuries in Dunn County. The goal in order for you to achieve that is to have a 50% reduction in the death and severe injury crashes in Dunn County by 2040. And what that means is about 15 severe crashes by 2040 is what that equates to. Key strategies for you to address that is, again, prioritizing safety of vulnerable road users, using roadway infrastructure projects, support Wisconsin's SHSP plan performance targets, which we'll get into in the last slide, and then addressing locations with known crash issues that are identified through this plan. As mentioned to your chapter on policy review. So this is where we looked at an overall and encompassing best practice nationally as well as within Wisconsin, and then your Dunn County policies and plans. This looks at a high level what specific elements can be incorporated as a part of your plan, and then specifically within Wisconsin and then your Dunn County plans, we looked at a little bit of a deeper dive of what do those plans specifically include, and that's what you'll see on the left-hand side is a general information description of that plan and then considerations for incorporating in your safety action plan. And so those are all bulleted information. It again also includes not only what as a part of like your Dunn County bicycle and pedestrian plan, what kind of elements can be incorporated into the safety action plan, but also vice versa of what elements of the safety action plan might you consider including in future updates of the bicycle and pedestrian plan. So that is your policy review section. Some of these slides are going to be repeats that you've seen, but just wanted to go over at a high level again too. So the engagement at the county fair as well as the wiki map. So we had quite a bit of comments and engagement. We had 86 members that we engaged at the county fair, 189 comments that were received on your wiki map. General traffic safety concerns that we had identified too is speeding and aggressive driving was one that continued to come out through conversations with community members as well as distracted driving concerns or feeling of unsafe around intersections, and then concerns about alcohol and impaired driving. Similar to common themes from the wiki map, we saw those same themes as well that we saw in the dot exercise as just general, where's traffic congestion around your county. Again, intersections came up quite a bit, as well as speeding, feeling of wanting more pedestrian infrastructure, some connections throughout the county. And then we saw a couple that were roadway maintenance specific. So where are your potholes and things like that as well. For the safety analysis, so we begin with a general historical crash evaluation. So looking at within the 5 years, we looked at 2019 to 2023 and just did a general map of where the concentrations of crashes occurring. You'll see predominantly in Menominee and then where you're like 94 throughout. But again, we're wanting to get a general view of where the crash is occurring within your county, which you'll see a lot of that incorporates to the high injury network, which is on this slide here. Those blue lines are motor vehicle specific, and then you'll see the one little light blue line here that is specific to non-motorized. So we did develop and look at those two separate and developed separate high injury networks. To be considered on the high injury network, that roadway had either fatal and serious injury or 2 fatal or serious injuries, or at least 1 fatal or serious and 3 minor within a mile segment. And so those were areas, again, where the highest concentrations of crashes were occurring within your county. And it was very similar to the map that you saw previously. And then that last bullet shows too that the high injury network accounts for around 30% of your severe injury crashes, but it only accounts for 3.7% of non-freeway roadways in the county. So it is those roads have the highest concentrations and just kind of driving that fact. In addition to this is something that we reviewed. It was a larger table format previously for your plan. We made them into more graphical bubbles, but it shows to out of using SHSP or emphasis areas and contributing factors, which are the highest in Dunn County. So that's what these bubbles indicate. Speeding was again among one of the highest, as well as inattentive and impaired driving, followed by those 3 others closely as well. So something to consider as going through the plan and addressing those crashes. Similar to that was a part of the historical crash evaluation. So these are, we've called them crash profiles for the plan itself, but these were the crash decision trees that we looked at the last meeting. They show the breakdown too of where's your distribution of all of your crashes occurring. And of course, we saw them, a good chunk of them are on your state system. on your local road, it is still about 37%. And then from that, we're seeing about 57% of those severe injury crashes, though, are on your county system, which really drives addressing those fatal and serious injuries along your county road. And that's one of our focuses in the next sections in that proactive systemic analysis. So we have two parts. Again, the historical crash evaluation as well as the systemic. In order to address those historical crash evaluations or crashes that are occurring, we have a toolkit as a part of your safety action plan. It includes, right now, you just see rural safety countermeasures on this screen, but there's also urban and also includes ped bike, there by intersection, segment, and curve as well. And includes some high-level proven safety countermeasures to consider when you're looking at those high concentration locations, those that are on the high injury network. It also has the estimated implementation cost, general effectiveness as well, and then how they address in the safe system. So if it looks at severe conflicts, speeds, managing time, increased attentiveness. So those things that came up as we also were working or had engaged the public. So that was again, that more historical crash evaluation, that reactive side. Our second piece looked at the systemic safety analysis process. So this one took over and we began by establishing your county roadway network. It focuses specifically on the rural county system, as we saw when we were doing that crash profile analysis, where the over 50% of your fatal and serious injury on the local system was occurring. So this, again, focuses on that. We collected quite a bit of data on each of those roadway systems, and we're going to be making sure we give that over to you guys in a giant geodatabase so you have all of those lane widths and all that data and information. From that, we identified risk factors. And so risk factors are where there's characteristics or presence correlated with an increased likelihood of fatal and serious injury crashes. So we had identified that specifically for segments, intersections, and curves. From there, those locations were prioritized in an order. So you had 1 through 100 or 1 through 200, identifying which one is that most risk. And then from there, we assigned project recommendations for each of those that were identified as high priority. And for that table on the bottom, you'll see too kind of that breakdown of number of features that were analyzed for Dunn County and then where those priority features laid. So with segments, there were 137 analyzed, but we identified 42% were high priority, dependent on those risk factors. Curves, there were 885 with 60% of those that were prioritized, and then intersections, 634 with 34% of those prioritized. So among your general list, there's 3 different tables, and I know this is a lot of information on the screen right now. We'll get into little close-ups as well. So in your plan, you have 3 separate lists for each of those different features, segments, curves, and intersections. One is a general data list. One is how they were prioritized and those risk factors that were considered. And then it's third, this project list that you see on the screen where it goes through and states where's the location and then what's the projects recommended. So if we look here, that first section is again going to show you what is the route name, what's the start and end description of that location, that length in miles, and then the stars indicate the prioritization. So higher number of stars means higher priority. And then that second portion is the project recommendation. So if it's a 1, it means that a project was recommended or that specific project recommendation was recommended for that specific location. And then on the far right-hand side are general cost estimates for implementing those specific projects. Within your plan, just to show a snapshot, we identified the top 10 locations of each of those lists. Again, deeper dive, you're able to look at each of those more in-depth lists and longer. But these were the locations of the top 10 for your segments, curves, and intersections. And then among your plan as well is a project map that accompanies each of those. So you're able to identify looking at the ID numbers and seeing where those are located. Then the implementation and tracking. So this kind of brings all of those pieces together of how you're going to get to your 50% reduction by 2040. It shows or includes the total cost of all estimated projects. If you were to implement all of those, 15 million. Understanding that is a large number too. So in that chapter, there is a section on potential funding sources for consideration. Along with those list of recommended projects are cultural actions within Dunn County. It talks through of adopting the safety action plan, working with GIS to incorporate a lot of this data and potentially use it as tracking elements. And so that's what the table on that bottom left-hand corner shows. For evaluation and tracking, those are those different factors that the SHSP includes. So it's again tracking your number of fatal and serious injury crashes by mode and location yearly, number of safety engineering project implementation, number of non-engineering countermeasures, and investment amount. One of the things too that we've talked about with Dustin, Robbie, and John too is how we can provide some options for tracking, whether it's in a spreadsheet format with those specific fields or potentially even in GIS. So we'll have that. And then the last piece is that we're going to be have it in your plan that it's update of every 5 years of this plan. So how whether it's a full revamp or just specific sections or looking at those lists, but in some form updating every 5 years. And so that brings me to the end of the plan itself. In addition to that, we're also developing two supporting resources. One is a story map that you'll see on the left-hand side. It includes a high-level summary of the safety action plan. So if your readers aren't wanting to look through all of those different components of a PDF, there's a story map that will live online that has kind of more mapping features too. So, within that crash profile section on the bottom, you'll see there's going to be buttons that say, okay, which ones are your city rural roads? And then those features and locations will show up. So again, more interaction, more buttons and options to kind of look into your data more visually. So that's going to be developed as well as a navigable tool. So taking all of those different countermeasures and developing a high level decision tree. So as you're going through and addressing some of those high injury network locations, how can you potentially narrow down some of those recommended projects? So those are also coming. Our next steps is to finalize edits of the safety action plan. So once Dustin and other county members review, provide comments, we'll incorporate those and have the final plan here within a week. We're also finalizing the story map, and we'll have that over to Dustin as well to review that navigable tool that I mentioned, and then preparation for the fiscal year 2025 NOFO that we're expecting by the end of the month is kind of the word that we've heard. So any questions? Went through that kind of fast. Hearing none.
Appreciate it, Nicole. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you all for having me.
Any more?
All right.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on.
Thank you.
Next.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to DOT traffic engineer.
All right, first we'll go through what we have on the docket here for construction this year on the state system. Highway 12 from 94 to 25, we have a resurfacing project. There'll be an 1 3/4 mill and 3 1/4 inch overlay. Anticipate that can be done with flagging, or it might be done at the same time that we're doing the 25 and 12 intersection Pine and Broadway. For that intersection, we're realigning the northbound lefts for positive offsets and redoing Pine Avenue approaches both sides to get head-to-head lefts in there. Signal head per lane, flashing yellow arrows, redoing the west leg. We're gonna put a raised median between the mall and Walgreens driveway so that drivers can't go through and turn left either. We've got quite a few crashes with that movement. The west leg is gonna be closed up to 24 days. We're gonna detour that onto Oak. And so during that same time, the contractor could also be working on 12 going out toward the interstate with the paving. Anticipating a June start with an August 29th completion date. Work on 25 will just have stage construction with some lane closures. On Highway 64 from O to County W again this year, we'll be doing a 2-inch hot in place recycling with a seal coat and fog seal. We did this last year, east of Cornell, I think with some pretty good success, except we're including the full width with shoulders on this project. August start is what I'm hearing from the contractor with October 3rd completion. That'll be done with the flagging operation. On 94, we have a deck sealing project. We'll be sealing all the bridge decks. We do this every 3 years on a recurring cycle, just off-peak nightly lane closures. Most people probably won't even know that we're out there doing it. Anticipate sometime during the summer when the temperatures are decent. There's an August 1st completion on that. Then Highway 40, the branch Sinking Creek Bridge, just north of B. We're replacing that short bridge with a box culvert. They'll be detoured using Highway 12 to 94 to 25 to 170. That project will be let in July. I anticipate that will probably start around Labor Day or shortly thereafter, done by November. We have some local projects. Do you want me to talk about D?
That's fine.
County D from K to 420th. The pre-con is next week on the 27th, and it looks like a possible April 4th start date with July 7th completion. And then there's the Flake Creek Bridge up Connorsville in County B. That'll be bid in May. And then there's 10th Street and the town of Rock Creek, the Cranberry Creek Bridge. That was just let here in March, so I don't know any more. As far as traffic issues, on Highway 25 and the Double B intersections, we did get our safety projects approved there for roundabouts at both intersections. I sent out an email to Dustin and David with the city. We do have that on our website now, so feel free to share that on your social media or your websites or whatever, kind of get the word out. Always seeing stuff on Facebook about those intersections, and it'll be nice now we can say, all right, this is what's happening to kind of get some of that speculation on it. The project is still on track next year to do the resurfacing from 94 up to D. We're just going to go through those intersections now. We won't do the turn lane widenings anymore, but we'll at least hit the pavement when we go through there. The roundabouts, they won't be built until we're looking at 2031. If some funding changes, we might get them sooner, but that's the best we can do for now. Highway 12 and E. I reviewed the intersection here due to the fatal crash this last winter. Based on the crash trends we had out there, we doubled up the northbound stop signs and added the reflective strips to the posts. Not enough crashes to do anything more substantial at that intersection at this time, but we'll continue to monitor and kind of see what happens. You had a concern about the southbound approach?
Yeah. Can we match it up so it's the same both directions with the 2 stop signs and the red, at least the red reflective striping down the stop sign? I think that's a pretty
I could look into
pretty
that.
inexpensive fix, but
When looking at the crash trends, there's almost no crashes in the southbound direction, especially, failure to yield or failure to stop. So I could see if we could put on the reflective strip. I kind of want to hold off on the second stop sign just because we only have a limited toolbox.
Yep. And
we kind of want to do the right treatment at the right time based on what we're seeing. So I'll see if we can maybe put the strip on there. That's a pretty low cost and it's close to my shop, so. And then the only other thing, Highway 12 and 970th Street, the town Elk Mound, we're working with the township to upgrade the north approach to add a right turn lane from westbound 12 on a northbound 970th. They're doing an air project this year, so they're not gonna do any work on the railroad crossing, but we're gonna at least try and get, that intersection of Highway 12 and 34. So they're gonna do the work under a working highway permit, so.
Is there talk of getting any railroad crossing enhancement there?
I don't know. I know it was,
From the townships that there is, that they got put back on.
it could be, I haven't heard anything on that. I know Mike talked about it at the last meeting here, said they were looking.
I still think it's a 4-year-old plan.
Yeah, it's a long-term plan, but I've heard they're getting something now. They got put back on the list after that turned to a fade.
Otherwise, that's all I have. Questions?
What's the website again? You're talking about.
Oh, it's on our DOT.
DOT.
Yeah, if you go to 511, and on the projects page, you should be able to find it.
Okay. And we're gonna post it on our highway website. Okay. With a link.
I don't, I have a lot of questions. I was certain by chance to have the estimated cost, because people would be like, why is it taking, that's our first question, why is it gonna take so long?
Real estate,
Real estate's gonna be an issue.
especially with the north one because of what we're doing on the west approach. We've got, the website has conceptual drawings of each intersection, and the west one, the first time you look at it, you're gonna be like, holy cow. But, once we get going with design, we may refine that and we could kind of change it up a little bit too, but, yeah, real estate's the big thing. And we're competing statewide for this funding, so that was the soonest that we could get it out.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to DOT law enforcement liaison.
That would be me, thank you. Share my screen. All right, Dunn County Traffic Highway Safety Commission Quarterly Information Slides, March 21st. These numbers on the screen are statewide year-to-date fatality crashes. This is from March 9th. So it's a week old. So the state is showing 84 crashes with 89 fatalities. Earlier, I just looked at the numbers of earlier this week, it's 88 with 93 fatalities. Either way you look at it, we're trending much higher than what we were in 2024, or even the 5-year average, which is 67 crashes and 74 fatalities. So 2024 Dunn County fatalities, showing at least on the maps, 5 fatalities and 5 crashes. Compared to 2023, showed 7 fatalities and 5 crashes. That sound about right?
Yep.
So every once in a while, I'll run it through the maps, and then if one was put on late or was taken off, I may not get that right away. Then overall crash totals for Dunn County, 2024, 775 crashes, the 5 fatalities, and 227 injured. So Dunn County, this is comparing 2024, it says 1-year average, but essentially with the 2023 numbers. And like I said, 775 crashes compared to 805 in 23. So that off to the right, it shows a 4% decrease, obviously trending in the right direction. Property damage, possible injury, minor injury crashes are all down 3, 5, and 6%. Good trend. Fatal crashes are 5, which is a 0% increase, but the crashes are the same, fatalities are down. Aggressive driving is up slightly. Teen driving, speed, and impaired crashes are down. Distracted driving is up 38% from one year to the next. Pedestrian crashes are down 10%. Bicycle crashes shows a 50% increase from 4 to 6. And then the number at the bottom shows a work zone up 600%. Obviously, that determines by what type of work zones you have out there. I think that shows that more than it shows the type of driving change per the drivers. So now crash data year-to-date numbers as of March 14th, showing 157 total crashes in Dunn County and 35 injuries in those crashes. And 0 fatalities. Taking the fatalities from last meeting till March 14th, I showed 2 fatalities and 2 crashes. I think we mentioned both of them a little bit already. But this would be one vehicle or 2 vehicle technically crash on December 12th at 3:15 in the afternoon. Is with the vehicle versus train. Just a diagram from the crash report. And the 5-year history of crashes in this location. Don't show a lot, but I did show that there are 3 total crashes within 5 years of vehicle versus train at this location. Which generally you don't hear vehicles versus train crashes very often, even in 5 years, but this one does show 3. And this is the one you mentioned that they're possibly talking about redoing the intersection.
Yeah.
I think that's a conversation that probably should be held at this location anyways. Then the intersection we were talking about just a minute ago on a crash, December 24th at 2:44 in the morning at E or on E and 12th. Crash at the intersection. And the 5-year history shows 8 total crashes, this fatality and 17 injuries. That's intersection related only in this section. So 5-year history showing 8 total crashes, intersection related. Any question on those numbers or those fatalities? So now looking at the fourth quarter of 2024 versus the 3-year average. Total crashes are the same. No injuries are slightly down. Fatals are up from 2 to 1, it shows a 200% decrease or increase. Aggressive and over 65 drivers slightly up. However, teen, speed, and impaired driving are down 12 to 30%. Good numbers there. Displayed by unit, see the type of vehicles, commercial motor vehicles, slight increase. Motorcycle driving in the fourth quarter, I guess, is 100% decrease, but when you go from 1 to 0 in winter, still a good percentage change, looks very good. And other crash flags from lane departure, intersection, winter road. And again, I showed the work zone numbers are up quite a bit from at least 1 year to the next. And the fourth quarter bears that out also with a 1,700% increase. So there's 2 programs that this quarter bots is putting out there or sponsoring. The first one is a driver oriented screening for cognitive impairment or DOSI. It's a roadside screening tool for Wisconsin law enforcement. So this is a tool that can be used by law enforcement at either a traffic stop or a traffic incident, crash, where the officer believes there's some type of issue with the driver, that this person doesn't seem to be driving right. And it's also after law enforcement rules out alcohol or drugs. Obviously, that's the first thing law enforcement generally looks at. This program is developed by University of California in San Diego to help law enforcement question, get evidence on type of not impairment, driver behavior. For reports and how to take care of these driver. Now, the bottom part of this slide is Wisconsin Department of Motor Vehicles supports the use of this tool to gather information on the roadside. It does not, DMV does not support the use. There's a scoring at the end of this. 0 to 2, 5 wrong, 7 wrong. They do not support using that summary in a report. So the officer just doesn't type up a report saying, this asked the questions, this person scored a 7 on the Dawsey app. That hasn't gone through enough for in courts or anybody for that. But the information gleaned out of this program can be used to write the report. And I'll explain what the questions are. On the links, here's a 30-minute video, explains the backgrounds and problem, what they're trying to solve. And a 10-minute video on how to use the screening tool, the card, or the app. However, I took screenshots of the app, and I will show you here right after this. So if you have an Apple phone, and as of earlier this year, it was only Apple, you can search for Dawsey or Treads, and that is the icon to download. And on the bottom, it says data is purged after each use. So for administration and phones that are either personal phones or given by the department, nothing is stored on the phone. In fact, you do not even put names or anything in the app, so there's nothing for it to save. In fact, the email and a login is a generic that is showing up on the screen. And actually, if you put it in once, unless you probably change your phone or something, you only have to log in once. So it developed questions. The program developed questions. You will ask the drivers, try to get the information you're looking for. A couple of the questions you see on your screen, like the first question is, what is your date of birth? The questions are that simple. And it even shows Spanish if you want. And the officer hits correct or incorrect if they got it right. Questions 7 through 9 is what is today's date, month, day, and year, each are an answer. Like I said, it gives you a scoring at the end. 5 or more incorrect is a priority. That something needs to be done with this driver. I know law enforcement can fill out a driver behavioral report, I believe, and tracks. That would be the first step to getting something done. 0 to 2 incorrect. That could be anybody at any time. I was at a different meeting where somebody asked, well, I generally don't know what day of the week, the month, date, don't know what the date, right? I'm like, well, that would be one wrong. I'd go, I bet you do know the month and the year. So everybody should be able to pass this test. The only thing the app asks you to do is at the bottom is you will submit what type of a referral it was and whether a citation issued. It only goes to the developers to see if their app is being used. That's the only thing is being submitted. You may find a couple links officers will in the app that takes you to like more information or something like that. That's tailor-made for California. So those links and stuff probably won't need to be done until they adapt it for different states. Any questions on that app?
Yeah, so say we do have the app or whatever, I know they don't want us using the results in a narrative report, what they want to do, like a condition report that just goes too straight into the.
No, anything used, do not use but you can use. I asked them this question, this question, this question. They didn't even know the date or where they were. So you can glean that from that app, but they still don't want
They just don't want the scoring.
the score. Everything else you can.
Everything else, yeah, because probably they're not going to evaluate it based on just the score.
Correct. Does that tell me that California can use the score? Maybe it does. That I don't know. But maybe at some point, the Wisconsin will say that is we can use 6 wrong on the Dawsey app, but as of right now, just in the narrative, he said they didn't know their name, they didn't know the city they were in or the highway they were on. Them are the basic questions. Community map virtual office hours. I've had this on previous minute or meetings, second Monday of every month. Log in or the QR code and sit there and listen. They may ask you to introduce yourself, but other than that, you learn how to use community maps, or if even you have a question you can brought up, or can community maps do this in the future? The developers are the one running the meetings. So this is a good time to bring this up. In the community maps, there are tabs. Like if you look at search or advanced, that's where you get your crash data. But there's other things on there, such as TSC resources. And I pointed to the top link is a TSC toolkit. That is primarily for the chair and vice chair, where it'll help you in the safety commission itself. For example, if you want to know how do we engage more community members, or how do we make a letterhead, or how do we go over fatals or something like that, this is what the toolkit is for. They put a lot of time and energy into it. And like anything with DOT bots, the more people use it, the more they'll support it. Even with the DOSI app and the other one, more people use it, the better. And if not too many people use it, the amount of hours they put into something. So in this toolkit, though, you don't have to read the hundreds of pages. In the toolkit, you can go to the link in the specific section that you may have a question on. For example, C, how do we re-engage an active member? Click on the link, it'll give you some pointers on how to do that. We can go, that's about as far as I'll go through this on this, because there will actually be no ending to this. But I can always stay over, come earlier, come a different day, and we can pop through it if you guys wish. The second program I mentioned, the first one was a DOSI. This is Safe Roads Challenge. It does say join Children's Wisconsin in creating safer roads. It's an app to put on your phone where they're wanting teenage drivers, but this can be adult drivers also, to put this app on their phone. The more they drive safely, it counts and awards are given or earned, I should say. And it's just not a email saying, hey, you drove good today, you know, with the speed limit. People can win true gift cards, Starbucks or an oil change. I was even told somebody used this for don't know how long. They even got their insurance paid for a year. And this is paid for by Children's Wisconsin and the Safe Road Challenge company. That's a screenshot of it in a minute. Any questions, you can contact Randy Wiesinger. He's also law enforcement liaison at the state, kind of spearheaded this. Trip score, what I wanted to say a minute ago. That is what the app looks like in the App Store. So obviously it runs in the background of people's phones while they're driving. Obviously, there's nothing you have to do on your phone for it to run or to count. Obviously, that would be counterintuitive what we're doing here or what the app is for. Any questions on that app? I went through it pretty quick. But if that's a good thing to put out on social media, anybody is a driving instructor in their classes, good to put out there. 2025 drug recognition expert or DRE training for law enforcement. The first deadline for the spring class in April is passed. However, there is a fall class in October. Deadline is prior to July. And it's fully funded by bots. Only thing it's not funded if you have to overtime to fill a shift at your local agency. Any interest or trying to sign up, the contact is on this slide at the bottom. We do have legislative updates now. We'll hit the high points. So proposed legislation introduced into the assembly, so it's already went through several stages before it got here. Black and white registration plates. They're looking at having all black license plate with white letters. The added revenue would go into the transportation fund. Battery to community service officer, increasing the penalty up to a class H felony. Anybody looking at being, or retiring, in law enforcement or firefighters. It's allowing that retired person to get hired again in a WRS job, but elect not to participate in the retirement system. Essentially, what it does is allow that retired person to collect their retirement check and also a check from their new job. Because now, right now, there's certain, you can't work over 1,400 hours and certain other. So this would allow them not to join the WRS in their new job. Detention assistance requirement. There's this one, and there's one coming up. Essentially, this one says that local law enforcement will not assist federal immigration services in detaining illegal people. And there's another one saying that the sheriff's office jail will help. And you can just, that's my non-legal, how you compete with these two, but you can just see who sponsored them. And my 2 cents is neither will be passed. This one probably will not get passed through the Senate or the House, and the other one will not, if it gets through, probably will not be signed by the governor. License plate concealment devices. This law would, they're already illegal, but this would make selling them illegal also. And they want me to ask local law enforcement if you see an increase in these items. I know in the past, you see them here and there. I don't know if there's an increase in them. They're the, they look like they're tinting over the license plate. Some now are getting fancy where a camera from a certain angle will just block it out.
We are seeing an increase in those to a certain extent with the flock cameras used throughout communities.
And that's kind of my opinion, especially if the red light cameras start coming into where they put the cameras on the intersections and then they'll snap the pictures of the cars going through the red light. That can be a citation can be sent out. I think if they're widely used more, people use these more. So this is just trying to get ahead of the game, I think. Well, these are proposed legislation in the public hearing process. Like I mentioned, there are county sheriff immigration functions. Kind of like I mentioned earlier that they must assist. K-9 Rigs Act, increasing the penalty for cause of the death of a K-9 to a Class G felony. Reckless driving vehicle impoundment. This one essentially say if you impound a vehicle, local law enforcement, they can hold it until a bill is paid. The towing and storage is paid. With a note at the bottom saying, though, if it is a stolen vehicle, you must return the vehicle. You can. I don't think too many people do that or agencies, but I could be wrong. So along with that is vehicle impoundment traffic offenses. So this would allow law enforcement to immediately impound a vehicle with below 4 offenses for up to 90 days. OAR, operating without a license, certain exceptions, speeding at 25 miles an hour or more, fleeing from a law enforcement officer, and racing on a highway. So these are unintroduced draft legislation, so still got to go through the public hearing and everything. So they're a ways away. We hired annuitants. We mentioned this earlier, but this includes protective occupant. So more people, including county jailers. School bus lamps. This would allow school bus to be equipped with one backup lamp mounted on each side of the vehicle, pointed backwards down by the rear wheels, either white or amber, I believe. More of a safety issue for the kids in and around the buses. Impersonating a police officer, firefighter, etc., making a Class I felony from a Class A misdemeanor. And police vehicle lights. This pretty much says where the color lights go on the vehicle. So I know The red lights must be mounted on the roof of the driver's side, blue on the other, and if it's on the inside, the same thing. I think that's generally what it is now. But then it goes into more detail about lights on the side of the vehicle. I believe allowing either color on the sides. I know when we put vehicles together a year ago at my old job, if it was on the blue side, you put blue lights on there, and the red side, you still put red. I think there's some large agency that does both lights on both sides, not on top. So this bill would just allow to put in different lights on the sides.
So east side, that's the issue.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Please save the date, August 19th and 20th, Governor's Conference, Highway Safety. There's a QR code to click on to sign up, as I was told. Hopefully by the end of this month, the sign up link should be functioning. They didn't have it done as of a week ago. And then the business meeting is the day before on Monday, August 18th. I believe that's the Monday. So 2 people from each TSC throughout the state are allowed to go to the business meeting. And that is in the Dells at the Kalahari like it was last year. Just contact information, people at the state. Reference grants for Dunn County. The last map I think I put up was a McAllister Crow at the very top right. He took a different job, so Dave Gress is the regional program manager of the state. So if you have grant issues or questions, get a hold of Dave. If you don't get a hold of him, people can contact me and I can get a hold of Dave too. Quite a bit, being the end of the year, numbers are on here, but is there any questions?
Not specific to that, but do you know if BOTS is going to do some media campaigns to get people to fill out the emergency contacts? I've seen it now on a couple driving records. That is a huge thing for us because we struggled for several days to find an emergency contact from a fatal crash here about a year ago. So if we could really get a media campaign going so that pops up on their driving record, that saves us a ton of time.
Haven't heard of it at all. I will look in it.
I've seen.
I think that's a great.
I think I've seen one return when I was doing revals on our supervisors. I'd run everybody and make sure that I had one of my supervisors had ones.
Okay. No, I've never seen it. One come back with one on, but I'll check into it and.
It's only the tail return.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
not the plate.
Yeah, it just pops up, all 3-4 lines, emergency contact, lists how they're related and how to get hold of them. So that's very helpful to us. So if we could really push that, that'd be great.
And if you have a local, social media page, if you want to put that out,
Yeah, I gotta find it where to do it and then I'll put it up.
because then I can, use, you guys as an example when I go to the other meetings too. At the very least, we can do it that way.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, move on. Thank you for the report. Next is railroad.
Mike is not
Mike is
present.
not present. Next will go to the highway safety coordinator.
I'm gonna try to keep this short. I have a lot more, but we're already at 9:54, so try to keep it short. The sheriff's office, since the last meeting, handled 94 crashes, which is up significantly from the previous block. However, that's kind of normal. We had some winter weather. They're mainly all single vehicle crashes. There was 22 multi-vehicle crashes, which was exactly the same number as previous blocks of the time. 72 vehicle crashes that were single vehicle. And then 17 crashes with injuries. Out of those, 26 people were injured. And then we had 4 alcohol or drug-related crashes where an OWI arrest was made. One of those had injuries and only one person was injured. So that's down from previous reports. I'll just touch briefly on the fatal crash on Highway 12 and 970th at the railroad tracks, because that one we actually touched on at the last meeting. It was not a fatal at that time. The gentleman died a few days after that and making it a fatal crash. The biggest thing I see at that intersection is there are stop signs. If people just followed the stop signs, we would be fine. People don't follow the stop signs, or because of the school traffic, they get to just a line of vehicles going, and they think if the one in front of me went, I can go. That statute is very specific, says you have to stop 10 to 30 feet from the closest rail to you. So they're violating it if they continue on, whereas if they've already stopped back, the other stop sign violations aren't as clear, so if you stop one or two cars back, you're probably okay. But this one is pretty specific, so you're in violation. I sat there 2 weeks ago, there was too much snow to back down the access road. That's where I'd like to sit, because you can see better there and people don't see you. I sat straight across the road from it. People are looking at me driving through, and I wrote a ticket. You know, it's like, why would you not stop? You see a squad. Sure, I got an unmarked F-150, but you still knew it was a squad sitting there just on the other side of the intersection. So people just, they're oblivious to that. And what you hear is, oh, there's never trains through. There's a lot of train traffic. There's a train that goes through there shortly after all the school traffic every day. And when I was on that traffic stop, after the kids said, oh, there's never trains, there wasn't a train as we were on the stop. So you got to see that there are trains there. I have the ATV numbers that you asked for last time, but I'm wondering if we should maybe skip them this meeting and do them next meeting, and I can meet with you and cover those. We had the other fatal crash, but I'll let Kyle talk about that one that involved one of our correctional officers, so we turned that over to the state patrol to investigate that. So that pretty much sums up what I got to keep it short.
Any questions? Thank you, Travis. We're gonna move to Highway Department, Dustin.
Yeah, I'll just provide a few little tidbits of information. So we have a number of projects that we're completing this summer. I won't go through in detail, but just look on our highway website. We will be updating that probably this next week with a list of all our projects that are going to be completed this summer. Roads will be closed while we are doing the work. A lot of them are pulverized and repave projects, so approximately 2 weeks, they will be shut down while we are on site. Obviously, when we're not working, we will open the road up to traffic. Like I said, look on our highway website for the list of roads. Just wanted to give a little piece of information. So we did install a little safety traffic device at the intersection of E and H and C and H in the town of Springbrook. They're called spin alerts. It's a little reflective whirly bird or whatever you want to call it on the top of a stop sign. It's a red and white reflective sheeting. We've had very positive comments, obviously, because they're new in Dunn County. I drive through there every day, and it's amazing how actually it brings your attention to that intersection. It actually looks like strobe lights blinking. St. Croix has a number of these. Not saying we're going to put them everywhere. I'm just trying it out. It's a very low cost effective solution that may help prevent one crash. We don't know. So, like I said, that is, if you did notice on our safety analysis plan, the portion of County Road H between C and E is a problematic stretch of highway. So like I said, we're trying to address as simple as we can to maybe help alleviate some crashes there. So yeah, that's about all I have. And if there's any questions.
Thank you, Dustin. We'll move on to the highway chair. Dustin remembered it. Thank you, Randy. I'll move on to Manatee Police Department.
Great, thank you. Just to recap on last year, we were about 60 crashes under on 2023. So that was positive. Some of that probably has to deal with less snow for 2024, but that's positive. And then so far this year, just keeping it short, we're on about the same trajectory as last year from January until now. And that I didn't have anything real significant to report. Other than with that, the 57 crashes we had this year, only 4 of them are PI. So that's a good thing. We usually have a little bit of an uptick with PI crashes in some of these late snowstorms that we had, but we've been pretty fortunate this year.
Any questions? You? I'll move on to Wisconsin State Patrol.
All right, Kyle here filling in for Brandon while he's on the beach. In the last period, the State Patrol investigated a total of 59 crashes within Dunn County, resulting in 1 fatality, 19 injuries. Of those on the interstate itself, there was only 33 of those property damage, 28, 5 injury, 0 fatals on the eye. The majority, though, over 50% of them were speed related on the interstate. So that's one thing that we did notice. And that kind of matched with the trends that was originally brought out, that 53% was speed related. So I've been saying 2 speeds getting to be an issue again. I think people are getting the bug to get out and seeing a lot. So try to do what we can to ramp those up there. So regarding the with one of those crashes, we did have 1 wrong way driver on I-94. They got on the interstate going the wrong way from exit 52. Might be a little glitchy. Basically, what we had is a elderly female was on Highway 29 looking to go westbound on 984. However, she got on the westbound off ramp instead of the on ramp. Both of those actually parallel each other until the curve. One thing that we did notice on our end is for the State Patrol, there's not a whole lot of warning signs, probably because both of those, the entrance and exit is right next to each other. We probably don't want to make it too confusing for motorists. But thinking, is it a possibility to add a wrong way sign further up at the top of the ramp as it's getting closer? Lady here, she actually gets on, avoided 1 car on the ramp. She gets immediately into the far right lane, thinking she's in the right place. The crash actually occurs outside of the camera view. She actually takes a semi head on, but the semi reacts well in time to slow down, so probably preventing a fatal crash. Assistance. The driver here that was in the wrong way ultimately was the driver condition report was submitted. She was very confused on where she was, things like that. So. But again, looking at the entrance here, the lane on the left is the off ramp, the lane on the right is the on ramp. So I could see how putting more signage here wrong way could be partially confusing. But this here, these are the only 2 signs indicating do not enter wrong way on the entire thing. Don't know if we want to add or what it takes to add a sign further up the ramp. Oops, sorry. As we go. Once these really split, which is right about here, maybe put another dual sign in this area. Just a thought. But again, very infrequently that this is where we have our wrong way driver. It's usually getting on 29, not on 94. But we've had these instances in the past too. From that, so.
I think they're also starting to put more markings on the road, on the pavement itself, like arrows going which way. And that doesn't affect the opposite lane too.
Right.
They had a breakout section that last governor's conference. They brought in an engineer from Iowa, and he's doing very good work on runway, and that's one of them things.
I just, the only time that probably wouldn't work, snowstorms.
Yep. I think he does conjunction, the signs and that, but yeah.
He did a lot of stuff that made a lot of sense. I attended one of his sessions as well, and a lot of stuff that makes a lot of sense.
And then the only other thing was the fatal crash at 29 and 1229 E. Edward. Again, middle of the night, 2:30 in the morning, impaired driver, speeding as well. Those are the biggest factors of the crash. I don't think anything could have been done more signage wise, preventive wise. There were thoughts, potential rumble strips or mumble strips, going northbound. Like I said, southbound, like I said, I don't think the data is there showing southbound, northbound, but the other issue here too, it's a very wide open intersection for someone traveling northbound or east and west. From that, so there really is no view obstructions for either drivers to see each other. That's not going to be noticed. From that, part of this too, bad timing of the drivers, part of which can't control. That's just the way it rolls.
I do know that intersection gets a little tight just with corn growing and all that. But
Yeah.
Corn's bad.
But again, even that's still an area where they actually keep it out of the right of way pretty good, if I remember right. They're not planting further into the DOT right of way. Where like I've seen in other areas where they're like, no, they're right up to the roadway edge. So I thought that they were always pretty good, keeping it back somewhat. But yeah, the corn can also be an issue in the summer.
Did you have a chance to look at the enhancements that were done with the signage down there?
29 E, not anything northbound. I have seen the southbound ones. I thought that was good.
Yeah.
I do agree to just having that red. I'm like, they did something for the stop ahead, but nothing for the stop sign. Just kind of like, well, that just seemed like it was halfway done. So I think adding that red retro reflective stripe on the whole, sorry, but I'm in favor of that too.
My hands are tied.
Right, I know. With the whirly-bird spinnings, that's only on, are they allowing that for state highways or that just count? That's what I thought, I just wasn't sure.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Kyle. Move on to Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources.
He's not present.
Okay. And then next we'll go to school administrators.
Yeah, good morning, Bill Yanks, Colfax Schools. I really have nothing new to report other than we replaced, updated all the Narcan and all of our buses and in our school where we have it located strategically. I have any questions.
Okay, any questions for Bill? Thank you. We'll move on to Dunn County Board Representative.
Nothing to add at this time.
Okay, any questions for Supervisor Kelly? Okay. Move on, community member. Ryan now.
Good morning. I don't really have anything to add at this time as well.
Okay, any questions? Fine. Okay, we'll move on to medical emergency reports and Red Cross. Jenny?
I did not see Jenny sign on. I did not see Shauna sign on either.
And then we'll move on to Mayo Clinic Health System.
Not see her sign on either.
Okay. Public health.
Hey, this is Jeff. Just a couple quick things. So we've had a pretty bad flu year this year. Vaccine was fairly good match, but vaccine uptake was pretty low. We continue to see deaths and hospitalizations in Dunn County with COVID, flu, and RSV, mainly among the very young and very old. And then the state is kind of gearing up for a measles response. There's in West Texas, New Mexico, there's an outbreak there. The MMR vaccine is the only effective prevention. You need about 95% vaccination rate to prevent outbreaks. Dunn County has just under 80%, but we have pockets within the county that are about 70% or less. So just that quick update. If any questions, I'll take them.
Looks like no questions. Thank you, Jeff. We'll move on to disasters. Melissa?
Hi there. Not a ton to report, with the limited amount of snow that we received. I think the spring flooding is, not gonna be an issue. We did have one minor, flooding concern right after that large snow we had a couple weeks ago, and then it melted within a few days. There was a 570th Avenue in Lucas Township did have, a resident who had water running right up to their doorstep, and they were concerned. So they reached out to me. I worked with the township. It's a little bit of the way the road is kind of built, a little bit of the way that the home was built right at the end of a culvert, that belongs to the township. And so the township is going to contact their attorney and have them write the resident a letter, and move on from there. So not a lot that I could do, but it is kind of just based on the way that the road lays. And then the culvert comes out of that road and kind of goes directly towards their property, which is built, right on the flat land. So that's all I had to report.
Any questions from Melissa? Okay, thank you. Highway traffic safety.
I'll add a quick thing that I forgot in the last one. We are participating, the sheriff's office along with Menominee Police Department and the community police departments, Boyceville, Elk Mound, and Colfax are participating in BOTS grant for OWI enforcement. In January and February, we put in 65 hours between patrol and also dispatch covering that, and made 78 traffic stops, one arrest for OWI. So that's a lot of screening stops that we made, and made one OWI arrest. So that's positive numbers, I guess, that we're not finding more OWIs than what we are, but kind of targeting your weekend nights for the most part, and doing an extra OWI shift based on grades from bots.
Have you been contacted by anybody about cutting 50% of that?
Have not.
Okay.
I hope not, because I'm spending it quite fast this time.
And
So
that's why you haven't been cut. So BOTS was letting grantees know that 50% of it was going away.
well, 50% goes away, I'll be about out of money here soon.
The reason is because of the funding from federal. It's up in the air with everything that's going on in Washington DC. So they're just trying to keep BOTS funded. But you're supposed to let you know if there was 50% cut, so maybe you
Have not
set it up
done it.
at the rate you're doing, that is probably maybe kept it out of you, kept it out away from you, so.
And we were pretty small grant this time, so I think it was just under 18,000, so it's a fairly small grant compared to what I've had before. One other thing I'll just quickly touch on, and then I'll move on, is School District of Elk Mound had a school bus crash. I just want to recognize that the bus driver did some pretty extraordinary things to prevent this from being a worse crash than what it was. The bus was stopped on County E at 998. Students were approaching the bus. You can watch the video, and I would play it, however, for time's sake, I won't. The bus driver looks in the mirror, because you can actually see her look up. She sees the vehicle coming. She immediately starts blowing the horn, which alerts the kids that are approaching the bus not to come any closer, and she releases the brake, absorbing a lot of that impact, and not having just a solid impact. So it lessened the impact. No kids were hurt on the bus, but pretty significant damage to the vehicle. The operator of that vehicle was arrested for operating while under the influence, talking 7 o'clock in the morning, and she was arrested for OWI, so. It's 7:11 in the morning. So it's out there at all times of the day. We're seeing more probably drug impaired driving during the day than even alcohol at night. So that's all I have.
Any questions? Thank you, Travis. Fire departments and EMS.
Nothing to add on this end.
Okay, any questions? Okay, move on to medical examiner.
No one's present.
Okay. Items placed at the request of the chair, nothing. Next meeting, June 20th, 2025 at 9 a.m. Any announcements? The meeting adjourned.
I'm going
Oh,
to
next
stop
up.
the recording now.